The second-hand store clerk in North Carolina watches a teenage girl trying on clothes with her mother. It's an ordinary Saturday, an ordinary shopping mall, and an ordinary line for the fitting rooms. But there's something about the girl's face that won't leave her alone. She's seen it before. Not in real life on a screen. A few months earlier in a Netflix documentary, among dozens of other faces of missing children, she walks over to the manager. The manager calls 911. Police arrive within minutes. And there, beside the checkout counter of a second-hand store, the longest child disappearance in Illinois history comes to an end. 6 years that law enforcement across 7 states had been unable to solve. The girl has just been identified under a different name, carrying a passport with a fake date of birth, more than 1,600 kilometers from her real home. But a few hours later, investigators uncover the most horrifying truth of all. For all 6 of those years, she hadn't been hidden by a serial killer, a stranger, or the kind of criminal seen on the evening news. She had been hidden by her own mother. Illinois. The village of South Elgin, a suburb of Chicago. The year is 2017. 9-year-old Kayla Unbehan is 132 centimeters, 4 feet 4 inches, tall and weighs 27 kilograms, 60 pounds. She has long light brown hair and blue eyes. She's a quiet, shy, and caring little girl with severe food allergies who loves dressing in a hippie style. Flowing dresses and plenty of costume jewelry. She lives with her father, Ryan Iserka, her stepmother, Lisa, and her 2 stepsisters. Kayla's parents, Ryan and Heather Unbehan, met in 2003 while studying design at the Art Institute of Atlanta in Georgia. They spent years planning to get married. But just 2 weeks after Kayla was born, in January 2008, Heather unexpectedly ended the relationship. There was no argument, no explanation. She simply walked away. At first, they arranged custody without going to court. Heather had primary custody of Kayla, while Ryan saw his daughter regularly. In 2014, Ryan married Lisa and moved to South Elgin. But informal custody agreements only work as long as both parents keep their word, and Heather began breaking theirs. She started taking Kayla to Georgia without court approval or Ryan's consent. That was when Ryan filed for full custody. In early 2017, Heather told the court that Kayla suffered from a rare medical condition that required her mother's care. The court ordered an independent medical evaluation. The conclusion was unequivocal. Kayla had no such illness. Ryan's attorney later told CNN that Heather had used her daughter's health as a tool to influence the custody dispute. The court responded immediately by granting Ryan sole authority over all medical decisions concerning Kayla. It wasn't a reward, it was a protective measure. As early as 2016, the court had already granted Ryan the exclusive right to make all decisions regarding the minor child's medical treatment and care, wording that would later become a key piece of evidence that Heather was not merely violating informal agreements, but repeatedly disregarding direct court orders. In early 2017, the Kane County Court awarded Ryan full legal custody. Heather retained the right to unsupervised visitation once a week on a fixed schedule, pick Kayla up, spend time with her, and return her home. For several months, that's exactly how the arrangement worked. Looking only at these facts, do you think anyone could have predicted what would happen next? But there was one detail that, at the time, no one understood for what it really was. On June 7, 2017, Heather failed to appear for a scheduled court hearing. No phone call, no explanation. People miss court dates all the time, and at that moment, no one saw it as a warning sign. On July 4, 2017, Independence Day, Heather picked Kayla up to watch a parade in the neighboring town of Wheaton, just as she had done dozens of times before under the custody schedule. The following evening, July 5, Ryan arrived to pick up his daughter for the scheduled custody exchange. Heather's relatives were having dinner with guests. When he asked where Kayla was, they told him she had gone camping with her mother somewhere in Wisconsin, though they didn't know exactly where. Ryan called Heather. Voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. He tried Kayla's phone. Silence. This was no longer simple forgetfulness. It was something else. Ryan contacted the police. During a second round of interviews with Heather's relatives, investigators learned a detail that would later explain everything. The last time anyone had seen Heather, she was loading belongings onto the roof of her car. Not camping gear for a weekend trip. Her belongings for a move. The South Elgin Police Department immediately classified the case not as a typical missing person investigation, but as a parental abduction. Heather's history of violating the custody schedule, combined with a missed court hearing a month earlier, pointed investigators in one direction. As the investigation unfolded, detectives uncovered a pattern that turned what initially looked like a spontaneous disappearance into a carefully planned escape. Heather had sold her car, leaving no license plate for investigators to track and no vehicle to identify through traffic cameras. She had completely deleted all of her social media accounts without a trace. Both phones had been permanently turned off. No GPS signals, no calls, no digital trail. There was no banking activity whatsoever. No credit card transactions, no ATM withdrawals. She had switched entirely to cash, disappearing from the financial system. Even Heather's attorney, who had represented her in the custody case, told police he hadn't heard from her in weeks. Not even her own lawyer knew where she was. On July 7th, Heather missed a second court hearing in a row. By then, there was no longer any doubt. On July 28, 2017, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Heather Unbehan on 2 charges: child abduction and child concealment. Kayla's name was entered into the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's database, and her photograph was distributed to law enforcement agencies across the country. The search initially focused on Georgia, where Heather's family had lived before moving to Illinois. The reasoning seemed straightforward. People in crisis often flee to places they know. It would prove to be the wrong assumption. Heather and Kayla had gone in exactly the opposite direction. For weeks, false leads poured in from across the United States. A girl who looked like Kayla had supposedly been seen at a gas station in Tennessee, inside a store in Texas, and in a neighborhood in Arizona. Every tip gave Ryan a surge of hope. Every investigation ended the same way. It wasn't her. And with each false lead, hope became harder to hold on to. This wasn't a stranger abduction. No one was holding the child captive in a basement. Her mother took her shopping, cooked her dinner, and read her bedtime stories. That is precisely why parental abduction is one of the least visible crimes against children. According to NCMEC, more than 200,000 children are abducted by a parent in the United States every year, and almost none of those cases ever make national headlines. If your child disappeared like this, without a trace, without a single real lead, where would you even begin looking? In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic brought what remained of the search to a near standstill. No more flyer campaigns. No more door-to-door canvassing. Federal coordination slowed as resources were redirected to the pandemic. The Bring Kayla Home Facebook page became largely inactive. On January 5, 2020, Kayla turned 12. It was the 3rd birthday in a row that her father had no idea where his daughter was. Ryan published an open letter addressed to a child who might never read it. For parents of missing children, hope often comes from the stories of other families. Every time a long-missing child is found alive, it reminds them that their own child could still be out there. That is exactly what happened a year earlier, in April 2019, when a young man in Kentucky claimed to be Timothy Pitson, a boy who had disappeared in 2011 after being abducted by his mother in a case that closely resembled Kayla's. The story made national headlines. For a brief moment, families across the country believed a miracle had happened. If Timothy had been found after 8 years, maybe their child could be found too. Then the DNA results came back. He wasn't Timothy Pitson. He was a 23-year-old man with a criminal history who had falsely claimed to be him. The real Timothy Pitson has never been found. Ryan would later tell reporters that the hoax had taken away a piece of his hope. Later in 2020, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age-progressed image showing what Kayla might look like at 13 years old, a longer, more mature face that even her own father had never seen. On November 1, 2022, Netflix released the Unsolved Mysteries episode. Abducted by a parent. Kayla's case appeared only briefly at the end, where NCMEC displayed her childhood photo alongside an age-progressed image. More than 6 months later, on May 13, 2023, a woman and a teenage girl walked into a Plato's Closet store in Asheville, North Carolina. One of the employees recognized the girl. She had known Kayla before she disappeared, and she also remembered seeing her age-progressed image in the Netflix episode. At 7:26 p.m., Asheville police arrived. Heather and the teenage girl were still inside the store. When officers asked for their names and dates of birth, they gave false identities, something they had apparently been doing for years. But the girl's appearance and age matched the National Missing Child database. Police contacted the South Elgin Police Department, and within minutes the confirmation came back. It was Kayla Unbehan, missing since July 5, 2017. Heather Unbehan was arrested at the scene on charges of child abduction and child concealment. Bail was set at $250,000, and Kayla was placed into the care of North Carolina Child Protective Services. The next day, Ryan drove more than 1,600 kilometers, 1,000 miles, from Illinois to North Carolina because he couldn't bear to wait for a flight. South Elgin Police Chief Jerry Crouchick summed up the news in just 2 words: very happy. Later, Asheville police confirmed that this was the first missing child case solved after being featured in Netflix's reboot of Unsolved Mysteries. Investigators later discovered that Heather and Kayla had spent most of those 6 years not in Georgia, where authorities had focused their search, but in Oregon, more than 3,000 kilometers, 2,000 miles, from Illinois. They had moved to North Carolina only shortly before they were found. How they lived, what identities they used, and how Heather supported them has never been publicly disclosed. Heather was charged with child concealment under Illinois law. She initially pleaded not guilty, but on the morning her trial was set to begin in August 2025, she changed her plea to guilty. On October 8, 2025, the judge sentenced her to 2 years of probation, 6 months of GPS monitoring, and a permanent no-contact order with Kayla. She served no prison time. The sentence divided public opinion. Some argued that 6 years of hiding a child deserved incarceration. Others insisted that a parent cannot truly kidnap their own child. But organizations like NCMEC continue to warn that parental abduction is often dismissed as a family dispute when, in reality, it can have lifelong consequences for the child. One fact, however, is beyond debate. Kayla Unbehan lost 6 years of her childhood, years spent under a false identity, separated from her father, her family, and the life she once knew. No sentence can give those years back. Today, Kayla is back in Illinois. According to her family, she is thriving in school, surrounded by friends, and living the life of an ordinary teenager. After everything she endured, ordinary became the happiest ending they could have hoped for. And perhaps the most remarkable part of this entire case is how it ended. The system failed to find Kayla for 6 years. But one store employee recognized a face she had seen years earlier, and made a single phone call. That call brought Kayla home. To this day, hers remains the first and only case solved after being featured in Netflix's reboot of Unsolved Mysteries. It is a reminder that even when every lead disappears, one person paying attention can change everything. 6 years. That's how long it took for Kayla to come home. And in the end, it all came down to one person recognizing a face and making a single phone call. Do you think Heather's sentence was fair? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoy real cases like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. And if this story stayed with you, share it with someone else, because sometimes one person paying attention can change everything.